From our teaching kitchen at the Grand Rapids Downtown Market, this is the Plant Powered Challenge 2022, brought to you by Spectrum Health's Lifestyle Medicine Team.
Hello, and welcome to the Plant Powered Breakfast Cooking Demonstration. I'm Elizabeth Stuvetti, Manager for Culinary Medicine at Spectrum Health. I'm excited to introduce to you today Dr. Talonda Bragg. Dr. Bragg will be cooking with me today as we prepare some super delicious plant-powered breakfast recipes. First, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Bragg. Dr. Bragg is an internal medicine hospitalist with the Spectrum Health Medical Group and the program director for Spectrum Health and Michigan State University College of Human Medicine Internal Medicine Residency Program. She's an associate clinical professor in the Department of Medicine at MSU College of Human Medicine. Dr. Bragg was born and raised in Inkster, Michigan, and now resides in West Michigan with her husband, Sid Bragg Jr. She's practiced medicine in Grand Rapids for 15 years and takes pride in helping train the next generation of physicians. Dr. Bragg is passionate about making healthier modifications or substitutes when cooking, and I'm excited to make some delicious recipes with her today. Today we'll be preparing overnight oats and some tasty toppings and a Tex-Mex breakfast bowl with fresh tomato salsa and a cashew lime crema. We hope this class inspires you to give these recipes a try. All right, well with that, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Bragg for being a very early supporter of the culinary medicine program at Spectrum Health. Without her, we would not be where we are today. So thank you, Dr. Bragg. I appreciate all of your support. And Dr. Bragg, I'd like to ask you before we begin, as a physician, what do you see the correlation between what people eat and their overall health?
Elizabeth, first, I'm so happy to be here with you today. I love food. I love everything about food. I love cooking. So this is a super exciting experience for me. So a lot of times when we think about food, we think about how we feel immediately. But I think what's more important is what we don't feel right away and what we don't see. So diet really correlates to the health of our body, the overall health. I think about having a high sodium diet, for instance. That can increase your risk of blood pressure, which can lead to heart failure, heart disease, stroke. I think about excessive fats and oils and things like that that can increase your cholesterol, that can put you at risk for heart attack. I think about diabetes and having uncontrolled blood sugars. That can really increase your risk for a lot of really bad things. So there's a big correlation. The problem, though, is that oftentimes we don't see those correlations until long term. So in addition to capitalizing on how great good food can make you feel, I want you guys to think about in the future how good food can make you overall healthy and decrease your risk of heart attack, stroke, diabetes, and all those terrible things that we often think about.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. We always love hearing from physicians like yourself around healthy eating and really understanding that correlation. So it's breakfast time. I'm sure everybody's hungry. Thank you everyone who joined today. We're excited to have you here. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We can try to address those as we go. But really it's breakfast time. And when I think about breakfast, a lot of times during the week, there isn't much time in the morning. And so we talk about like some quick and easy things to have for breakfast. So I know Dr. Bragg, when you and I were brainstorming on what were the things we wanted to make today, overnight oats came to mind because you can prep them ahead of time the night before, maybe even 2 days ahead of time, throw them in the fridge, and then in the morning they can be a quick grab and go. I personally like to eat mine cold. I'm not sure, do you like to heat yours up in the morning, Dr. Bragg? Or
I'm weird. I don't like them cold. I don't like them hot. I'm a lukewarm type of person. So I may take it out the fridge, nuke it in the microwave for about 30 to 60 seconds and have it that way.
All right, so just take that chill off a little bit. Cool. Well, let's get making this so we can show everybody how to make overnight oats. And the great thing with this is really people can customize it to however they want to fit their kind of the palette of what they like to eat, different fruits that you like to put in, or nuts and seeds. And so I picked some of my favorites this morning, and I know Dr. Bragg has picked some of her favorites that she'll show us with what she's putting in hers. But the first thing we'll do is we'll start with a jar. So you could use a bowl at home if you have that has a lid, or just cover something, but something that can be covered. And it is literally this simple. Like we have here some oats, about half a cup of oats that we're gonna put, this is rolled oats, also known as old-fashioned oats. We'll put that in our jar. And then some sort of beverage. You could use water. I'm using some soy milk today with a little bit of vanilla. That I added the vanilla. I did not use like a one that already has vanilla in it. And I'm just gonna put that in the jar. That is kind of the foundation that we have here. And then we're gonna put some other things in. So I'm gonna show what I'm gonna put in mine, and then Dr. Bragg, I'll turn it over to you and you can show us what you're gonna put in. So I'm gonna put in some ground flaxseed. This is a great source of fiber and protein, and it will thicken as it sits in there overnight. And so if you do want it a little bit more liquidy in the morning, you might wanna add a little more liquid to it. And then I'm gonna put in some toasted pecans. I love pecans. I think they're so rich in flavor, and so I'll put those in as well. And then I'm also gonna put an apple in. I'm gonna show how to chop the apple, but I'm gonna go over to you, Dr. Bragg, and have you get everything else started in yours, and then I'll show how to chop an apple up.
Absolutely. So I have my base here with my oats, and I like oat milk. I know it's like a double thing, oats and oat milk, but it is amazing. It tastes closest to milk. So if you're new with the plant-based milk, try oat milks. I also am a fan of sweet stuff. So I got cinnamon. Cinnamon is a great substitute for sugar. It adds a little extra sweetness. And when I was transitioning from using a lot of sugar, cinnamon really helped me out. So I have cinnamon and maple syrup because, again, you need your sweet. And I like to add chia seeds. Chia seeds can give you extra protein. It also has good things like vitamin B12. And it also adds this gooey consistency that makes things extra yummy, and it gives this extra body to it when it's done. So I love that. And then my favorite things are nuts. Add a little protein, a little extra fat. It holds you a little bit longer in the daytime. And I like berries, so I'm going to add those to mine.
So Dr. Bragg, I know in the morning you're probably in a rush a lot of times. Do you have any other kind of quick breakfast things that you like to make in the mornings?
Gosh, the great thing about eating plant-based is foods don't have to be contained to one time of day, right? So if I had beans the night before or Mexican food, they might find themselves in the breakfast burrito in the morning or like a breakfast scramble. One of the things that I love to make is like a tofu scramble with a lot of fresh vegetables. That can last you for quite a few days in the refrigerator. So take it out, nuke it in the microwave, have a nice piece of whole grain toast with it, and it's perfect.
Awesome. Okay, so anything else left to put in your jar? Or do you have everything there?
Everything is in my jar. I do want to tell people about a little cheat though. Sometimes maybe you fall asleep and you don't have time to make overnight oats. You can make super quick oats. So you do the same thing, and I may throw in frozen berries if I don't have fresh berries on board. Nuke it in a microwave for a few minutes and you're good to go. It still tastes the same. You might not have that fluffiness that you would in the oats from having them there overnight, but it still does the trick. You get all the great nutrients and you get your tummy full in the morning.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. All right, so I still want to put an apple in mine. So I'm kind of going for that pecan apple flavor. And I love that you put the cinnamon, and I'm actually thinking that I might add some cinnamon in mine as well. And I could even put that in the morning when I go to eat it. But for cutting an apple, when you hold a knife, you want to make sure you have a really good grip on your knife like this. Don't have your finger out like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the apple upside down so it's more of a flat surface. And I'm just going to cut around the core. And this is just a kind of quick way to cut up an apple in the morning. This center part, I'm still going to eat this. I'm going to chew around this later and snack on that core part so none of it gets wasted. And then each of these segments, I'm just going to flip them upside down. And that way it gets to some slices a little bit easier. And then from here, I can just dice these up into some small pieces. And like with the fruit, you could either throw that in ahead of time, you know, the night before, or you could do this in the morning as well. Dr. Bragg's using the fresh berries. You could also use frozen berries, and then they'll thaw overnight. So Dr. Bragg, do you have any favorite fruits or vegetables? Any that you're just like, oh, that's like my go-to, love eating that fruit or vegetable?
Oh, I love tomatoes, everything tomatoes, especially in the summertime. Tomatoes will find themselves in almost every dish that I make at nighttime. Berries, and the easy way to have great berries all year round is just to buy them frozen. Frozen food, you still have all the great nutrients as soon as they defrost, depending on how you cook them for vegetables, but still, frozen is a great option to get those wonderful berries year round. Potatoes are a go-to. My favorite. Potatoes, you can eat potatoes several ways. Eating plant-based, though, I've learned a lot of new cool ways to have potatoes. So potatoes are just probably the most versatile, if you ask me.
Awesome. Well, yeah, and part of it just is having your, refrigerator stocked so you have things so it's easy to grab things, some of those favorite items. So mine's all done. I've chopped up my apple, put it in here. And Dr. Bragg, we have a little bit of magic like we always have in the kitchen. So one, I wanted to make sure we can give this a try and see what we think. So we did prep your jar the night before so we can also give it a try. So this would go in your refrigerator overnight. Maybe even make a couple of them ahead of time for the week and you can grab them out, heat them up or not heat them up, or go Dr. Bragg's route and just take the chill off and maybe just do 30 seconds in the microwave. But if you're willing, Dr. Bragg, let's grab our jars of the ones from yesterday and let's give those a try and see how we did with those flavors and tastes.
I am very excited to have this.
Yes. And hey, you know what? It's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday.
Thank goodness it's Friday.
It's always fun to know that you reached the end of the week and hopefully get to find some time to relax on the weekend, hopefully. So
whoever made my movie magic oats, you did a fantastic job. These are delicious. The cinnamon gives that perfect amount of sweetness.
Yes, delicious. And one last question I wanted to ask before we finish with the oats was, Dr. Bragg, I know you, did have some health scares a while back, and would love if you're willing to share any of your story or maybe what kind of moved you towards the direction of eating more whole plant-based foods.
Absolutely. Several years ago, I had a really bad health scare where I ended up with multiple surgeries in my abdomen and several bowel resections, even had a ileostomy without, I know we're cooking, but us medical people, we talk about gross stuff all the time. But before I got sick and had all those surgeries, I was an omnivore. I can eat anything. In fact, I was a foodie, right? So recovering, and once I got back to a healthy state, I went back to being an omnivore, and I was shocked that I had this new thing like an irritable bowel, and I couldn't tolerate a lot of foods. And I thought that was just my plight for the rest of my life until I tried eliminating certain things, mainly animal products. And I started eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, more whole grains, and things normalized instantly. So for me, the motivation was the immediate improvement that I got in my bowel health. And I never looked back since then. So I have this new lease on life because of food, and I had no idea that I could use food as medicine to live a more high quality life. So that kept me going.
Well, good. I'm glad to see that you were able to turn around, and we're so grateful to have you here today cooking with us. And thank you for making oats, and I know we've got some more food to make. So with that, why don't we go ahead and clean up our workstations and get ready for our next breakfast recipe. And I think you mentioned you enjoy savory foods for breakfast.
Yes.
So we've got some savory food coming up next. So looking forward to cooking with you some more. All right, so it's time to do some more cooking, Dr. Bragg. When you and I were brainstorming about what we wanted to cook today for this session, you mentioned you enjoy savory items for breakfast. What are some of your favorite things you like to eat for breakfast?
Oh, savory is all about the spices. So the best things to spice up in the morning are potatoes. So we're gonna make that today. So potatoes roasted are a go-to for me in the breakfast time.
Awesome. All right, and when I spoke with you, it wasn't just potatoes. You like to put the layers on. So this morning we're gonna make a breakfast bowl. What all are we gonna put in with the potatoes? What else are we gonna prepare?
So it's all about the layers, it's all about the colors today. I think the more colorful the food, the better it tastes. It's a great psychological trick. But we're gonna layer it with some roasted potatoes that are heavily seasoned. I'll tell you guys about the Bragg seasoning a little later. And then a type of bean. I love pintos, I love black beans. You can choose either one, you can do a mixture of both. And then this very cool cashew crema that can really brighten it up and also add that creaminess and savory feeling to it. It makes you feel all good and warm inside. A fresh salsa, which always freshens it up, and that's where our color is gonna come in. And we'll garnish it with some fun things at the end.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get these potatoes cooking. So the first thing we're gonna do, we've got about 4 potatoes here. We're gonna chop these up into kind of cube-sized pieces, and then we'll get them roasted in the oven. But like you mentioned, we're definitely gonna put some spices on. So to cut this potato, it rocks around a little bit, so I cut one side off, and then I put it flat on my cutting board, and this allows me just to cut a little bit more safely as I'm cubing this potato up. If you cut it into smaller pieces, it's gonna cook a lot quicker. So, if it's the morning time and you're making this and you don't have as much time, maybe you're gonna cut things a little bit smaller, or you could cut it larger, you're just gonna need a little more time for it to roast in the oven. I like to roast it at about 425 degrees. That helps to kind of give a little bit of a crispiness as well, which I like when I eat this. But yes, I'm with you. I enjoy some good savory foods for breakfast as well. I'm not as much a sweet person when it comes to breakfast. And also, like you, I love spices. But today I'm going to let you show us what spices we put on when we get to that point. So.
Awesome. Elizabeth, I also like to leave my skin on the potato. When you do that, it's a great form of fiber and gives you some extra nutrients. So when you're roasting potatoes, always leave the skin on.
Yes. Yeah, you just give them a good wash, and otherwise you're right. Whether it's carrots or apples or any of those things, you definitely want to leave those skins on. So great point. And Dr. Bragg, as we're going, I know that you have a family and like to gather with family and friends, but sometimes it can be tricky in social settings. I know you mentioned you eat more plant-based.
Yes.
Do you have any tricks or tips for people who might be in some of those same kind of social settings and trying to figure out how best to navigate those?
If I am going out with family, I always look at the menu first. So that's the key. If you can look at the menu and scope out what you want to eat, that's great. There's always lots of vegetarian options that's available. And sometimes you can make things vegetarian even if it doesn't look vegetarian or plant-based on the menu. The other thing that I do, if I'm going to a party and there's a social outing, I may eat beforehand because then I know I'll be satisfied already when I go. And if I have to snack on the less heartier things like vegetables or the non-meat things, then I'm satisfied as well and I can still enjoy myself without being tempted.
Yeah, that's a great point. It can be definitely tricky when you're going out in social settings, navigating that. And I think all those strategies are great, whether you're maybe having something prior, looking at the menu ahead of time, or even sometimes what I'll do is I'll look at the menu and I'll figure out what ingredients are in various things, and I might order like a pasta or something and then ask them to add various vegetables that I might see on the menu that they use maybe in one of their salads or some of the other dishes. And you can get a pretty nice dish that way as well. So, all right, so once we get our potatoes chopped up, we're gonna grab our largest bowl that we have. We have there, if you want to use it, Dr. Bragg, it's a bench knife. This helps to kind of scoop things up and put them in things, whether it's in your pot or in a bowl. I also at home often just kind of take the cutting board out over to wherever I'm putting something and then just kind of scrape it all off that way as well. But this might be helpful if you've got kids at home that are trying to help with the cooking, just to make sure you don't have a bunch of food all over your floor. So we put the potatoes in the bowl, and then we're going to add, I've got 2 teaspoons of olive oil that we're add here. And really when it comes to oil, you really want to kind of avoid putting very much in because oil packs a lot of extra calories. It is a processed food. And so you'll notice we didn't put that much in. Dr. Bragg, do you have any kind of like oil you tend to use at home when you're cooking?
Absolutely. Just like the olive oil we used, I may use that, but I use very little. Oil, to me, when I'm roasting potatoes, just goes to serve to make the seasoning stick. So a trick that I learned is to use a spray oil. They have those pumpers that you can buy from the grocery store where you can put your own oil in, or you can buy the spray oil. You use a lot less. I like avocado oil. I like olive oil spray, and that really serves the point of getting those potatoes coated. It also helps for a nice roasting and browning at the end.
Yes, well, it looks like you've done a nice job chopping up your potatoes. And Dr. Bragg, since you said you enjoy spices so much, I'm going to let you guide us through what spices you recommend that we put on this morning. And just know when other people make this at home, you can customize this to whatever you like. So if you like a lot of heat, maybe you're going to kick up the cayenne. Or maybe you're going to, if you don't like a lot of spices, maybe you're not going to use as many spices, maybe just a little bit of salt and pepper. So Dr. Bragg, what do you think we should use today? I'm open to as much spice as you'd like today.
All right, so I believe there is no such thing as too much spice. And since we're doing the Southwest Tex-Mex thing, there's some things that's really important. You gotta have your paprika, you gotta have your chili powder, and you absolutely gotta have some heat, which is the cayenne, and then cumin gives that really earthy taste. So I usually just eyeball it. There's a joke going around online saying you just stop when the ancestors tell you to. But I'm going to tell you guys, my eyeball, for instance, with this chili powder is probably about a tablespoon. But I'm just going to put it all in here because I like chili powder and I think it's going to be good. Then we have our paprika. If you want a more smoky taste, you can go with smoked paprika. Regular paprika is just fine. And then cumin. Remember, that's our earthy flavor there. And these potatoes are going to have a great color. A little bit of black pepper, onion powder, And if it looks like it's too much seasoning, that means it's just enough.
I love it.
Some garlic powder, lots of garlic. I'm just going to go with all the garlic because never can have too much garlic.
Woo, we're eating good today.
I'm a heat person, so I'm going to put all that cayenne in there. I go very light on the salt. And the cool thing is when you have all of these seasonings, you have so much flavor, you really don't need that much salt. So I'm going to do as little as just a 1/4 teaspoon, and that's it. I promise you the flavor is going to be good, especially when everything blends with our citrus and our salsa at the end. And I think that's about it. So once you got everything in the bowl, just give it a good mixing so it's evenly coated.
Oh, this looks beautiful. I love the color too. I'm just so excited for this. And then once we get all those spices mixed in, then we'll take a baking tray and we've lined it with parchment paper. And this just helps to kind of, for the cleanup, makes it go a little bit easier. And we're gonna just spread those potatoes out on this baking tray, roast them in the oven at 425 for about 30 minutes. I like my potatoes pretty soft. I don't really like much bite to them. If people want a little more bite, you just cook them a little bit less. So again, it really just comes back to what you enjoy. And then know that when you do pull them out of the oven, they're gonna carry over, cook a little bit longer, which just means they're gonna keep cooking a little bit and they'll soften a little bit more.
Now, Elizabeth, I like my potatoes crispy, so I may roast them for a good 30, 35 minutes because I like that nice crunch. A trick that I use is the air fryer. You can get a nice crispy potato if you do the same exact method of prep. Do it for like 15 minutes and you're good to go.
That's awesome. Okay, well, hey, let's get these in the oven so we can get them roasting, and then we've got a couple other things we're gonna work on with this dish. So let's go ahead and throw these in the oven. All right. I think next up, we've got the potatoes in the oven, they're roasting. And so now let's make some fresh tomato salsa. Dr. Bragg, when you talked about what you like to eat for breakfast, this just sounded mouth-watering to me. For others, they may not want to eat savory food for breakfast, and this might be something that you decide to make for a lunch or dinner, and that's perfectly fine. And I think you'll find, too, with this fresh tomato salsa, you could put this on a lot of different dishes. And to Dr. Bragg's point, it just really freshens it up, adds a lot of great color and vibrance. So let's get chopping. All right, so let's get those tomatoes out. We've got 2 tomatoes here. We're gonna dice these up and we'll put them in the bowl and go from there. So Dr. Bragg, while we're chopping up this tomato, are there any fruits or vegetables that you have tried to like and really wish you did, but just no matter how many times you try it, you just do not enjoy it?
Elizabeth, this is going to be controversial, but I am not a fan of carrots. Carrots.
What?
I know, everybody in the studio is like, what? So carrots, it's just a lot to take in, literally. You will chew forever. So because I'm trying to be open-minded, I will make carrots, but I'll incorporate them into, say, a dish. So they may be julienned or really thinly sliced to the point where my husband can see the carrots, but I can't taste them that much, and they blend in with the food. So carrots are not my thing.
Carrots, oh my goodness, that's interesting. That is the first time I've heard somebody have that much adversity to eating carrots. So now I feel like I'm at some point gonna have to make a dish for you and hide carrots in and see if you enjoy it. That's what I do sometimes with kids that tell me that they're picky eaters. So, well, I know you're also a graduate from Grand Valley State University. I believe you did your undergrad degree there.
Yes.
Any favorite memories from the Grand Valley days?
Well, the Grand Valley days, I think it's always the people that you remember that makes any experience special. And I have a lot of friends from Grand Valley that we are still lifelong friends. And when I think about how we used to enjoy things back in the day, a lot of it was centered around good food. So now as we're older in our 40s, now we're thinking about how can we have good, healthy food. So instead of doing like the poor college student thing with, boxed macaroni, but of course, culturally, I would spice it up. But instead of doing that and, chicken wings, now we're looking at, nice salads with all these wonderful greens and fruits and vegetables. So still the same enjoyment around food, but just kind of looking at it differently now that we're aging and a little bit more conscious about our health.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And maybe, Dr. Bragg, I think that'd be neat to hear. I think sometimes people might feel like you have to do like a complete 180 and jump from one way of eating to another. But what I have found personally is it's really just been a transition over a period of time. As the more I get more educated and learn more, the more that I start to, change the way that I eat as well. And I have kind of in the last 10 years transitioned quite a bit. What have you found has been kind of like your transition over time?
What's been nice for me is, well, first off, I kind of went in like all in. I was like, I'm just gonna do this. I remember I was struggling with some GI issues, so I was really desperate to feel better. So I just hopped right all in. But for my family and my friends that are trying something new and they have no problems being omnivores, what's been helpful is doing a little bit at a time. Maybe you swap out one meal a week for a non-meat or a vegetarian meal. Maybe you try a new vegetable, maybe a traditional vegetable that you've always used but prepared in a different way. One of the things that I love doing is substituting things out. So those things that I love to make, maybe that are cultural, like collard greens. Love collard greens. Instead of using the smoked meat or the salted meat or the smoked turkey, I actually will just go all in with the seasonings like you kind of saw me do today, and maybe add a little bit of smoky flavor, like this is a processed food, so not a lot of it, but like some liquid smoke will really take it up to the next level and still give you that traditional taste.
All right, time to get some color in this dish. We'll put some fresh cilantro in. The recipe calls for about a half cup of cilantro. So we can go ahead and put that in. And we'll share all the recipes as well, so that way all of you can try making these recipes at home. So I've taken a little bundle of the of the cilantro that we had here. And then I'm gonna cut this bundle in half right down the center and then stack it together. And when you chop up cilantro, you can use the leaf and the stem. They all have great flavor. I'll try to kind of squeeze it together in a little bit of a bundle and then just really roughly chop it up. It doesn't have to be really small, but it has such great flavor. Some people do not enjoy the flavor of cilantro, in which case I would say just go ahead and leave it out. You could also use parsley if you wanted, but for those of you that do enjoy it, by all means, let's get that cilantro in there. It makes for a beautiful garnish and really adds some nice flavor. It's used in so many international cuisines, the cilantro. I think that once people try it, they really want to make sure that they kind of throw it in their dishes to add that flavor. My mother-in-law always says, if you mess up a dish, worst case, you just throw cilantro on at the end and everybody will still enjoy it. So.
And Elizabeth, for those people that have an aversion to cilantro, it's not their fault. There's actually a genetic predisposition for people that cannot tolerate cilantro. So I'll forgive you if you don't like cilantro. I won't hold it against you.
Oh, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and we're gonna put in a little bit of red onion. We've got a whole red onion here, but we only need about a 1/4 cup of this red onion. And so I'm just gonna cut off kind of like one side of the red onion, and then we'll dice that up. I'll move the rest of it to the side. And you could use any kind of onion. You could use a white onion, you could use yellow onion. The red just really gives really nice vibrance to this dish. Dr. Bragg, you were talking earlier about kind of making things pop and how they look. And we do eat with our eyes, and so where you can kind of have those nice colors there, people are gonna be more drawn into eating the different dishes you prepared. So now I'm just gonna put that segment down so that it's flat. And then this way I'm gonna just cut some slices, and then from here I'll just dice it up a little bit and then throw this in the dish. With raw onion, you wanna make sure you're not putting in too much raw onion, otherwise it might kind of scare people off a little bit. So just kind of be cautious, and perhaps maybe this is one of those things you do want to measure when you're putting in and making this.
Yeah, and you just do what you like. I like chunky stuff, so you'll notice that my vegetables are probably on the chunkier side. When you dice them, yes, it blends together nicely, but that nice chunk, I like to see what I'm eating. So I kept my tomatoes a little chunky, my onions are a little chunky, and I went on and used the whole half of my onion because I like onion a lot.
All right. And Dr. Bragg, not everybody might be as familiar with your role here at Spectrum Health, but could you maybe tell us a little about what do you do at Spectrum Health? What's your role?
So I am an internal medicine hospitalist, so I see adult patients when they're ill and admitted to the hospital, but the biggest part of what I do is I teach residents and medical students, and I'm a program director, so I oversee the internal medicine residency program. So I get to walk with these very talented, smart doctors as they're going through their on-the-job training to become board-certified internists.
That's awesome. And I'm sure it's great because then you can probably share your stories with them and inspire them. And that's great to see that you're able to work with the up-and-coming professionals like that. Okay, so now I know you love the heat, so we're gonna add this heat in. There is a jalapeno there that if you'd like, we will put this in. I'm going to cut the end off of it, just that top stem part. And then I'm going to slice it lengthwise, and then I'll put those halves. Usually what I do is I kind of leave them open this way, and then just kind of cut some thin strips. Since we like the heat, I'm going to leave the seeds and the membrane in. If people are trying to steer clear of having as much heat, you could take the seeds and the membrane out. And with jalapenos, sometimes it's hard to know if they're going to be spicy or not. Oftentimes at home, what I'll do is I'll just cut like a little segment out, and I'll try that to see if it's spicy or not, so that I know how much jalapeno I want to add. Sometimes they're so mild, it's like adding a green pepper to your dish, and other times it can be pretty spicy. Dr. Bragg, at home, do you grow anything? Do you do any gardening at all, or?
I'm talented, but not that talented. I buy my vegetables, and I also belong to a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, where you can get fresh produce weekly from a local farm.
That's awesome. And I know you're great about getting out and going for walks, too. I see you sometimes post on social media that you're out there with your cute little puppy walking around. What are some ways you try to balance? I know you've got a busy life with working quite a bit. When you think about we're here today in our lifestyle medicine practice, what are some things that you find that you do throughout maybe the course of your week or your day to kind of help find that balance with balancing time for your health, but also the busyness of your day?
I just really try to make it a normal part of my routine. So if I'm at the grocery store, I may park further. I'll walk my dog for a block instead of just taking him out briefly to handle his business. I work out when I can. I have exercise equipment at home, and even before I invested in exercise equipment, I was, doing things like on the floor. So you can make it easy. Like you can do stretches in the morning. So I find that making it a part of everything that I do, just like brushing my teeth, I get up and brush my teeth, I should stretch for the day. It becomes a little easier.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear that you're fitting that time in. It's so important, we know, and something that if you kind of do it regularly, it just becomes those natural habits to fit those in. All right, so now we need to add a little bit of acidity to this. So we're going to add in some lime juice. There should be a lime there, Dr. Bragg. We're going to slice it in half. And you could either use your hands, or there's also a lime juicer that we'll just use that to put those halves in there. And we're just going to squeeze it over top. I like to put in about a tablespoon of lime juice. But again, one of the best things to do when you're in the kitchen, if you're not sure if you need more of something, is to taste test it. So having some tasting spoons close by is always nice to have. Give it a try, because if you don't like it, the people you serve it to are definitely not going to like it. So you really want to make sure you've tried it to check it out, that things taste great. So once we get that lime juice in there, then you could add a little bit of black pepper if you'd like. The recipe calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, but I'm with Dr. Bragg. I like a little bit extra bite to things. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have about another 1/4 teaspoon here, so I'll put in all my black pepper that I have. And then you could either skip the salt, or if you want, put in about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and just sprinkle that around. And you'll notice, I mean, just look at this come together. We've spent some time kind of talking through it, so it takes longer than normal, but it really doesn't take very long to make this. And this can last you up to a week in your refrigerator. So, we'll have some today for breakfast, maybe some tomorrow for breakfast, maybe put it on a dinner dish. But I find that where you can start to cook things ahead of time in bulk, and then just grab them as you need, it's an easy way to save time in the kitchen. So what do you think of this salsa?
I think it looks great.
I feel like we should try it. I have a tasting spoon. I don't know if you have a tasting spoon in range,
I do.
But I always love trying things. So let's see how we did, if it's too spicy or not. Dr. Bragg probably would say there's no such thing as too spicy.
This is perfect. This is perfect. The citrus is so good, because if you use citrus, you can use less salt.
Well, I can definitely
Perfect.
taste that jalapeno in there. That's in there. That is definitely nice and hot. So we've got that there. We'll set that aside. And I think at this point, Dr. Bragg, let's just talk real quick. When we were talking about kind of building this bowl, one thing that you said you really enjoy is cashew cream.
Yes.
Can you tell people what the heck is cashew cream? How do you use it? And are there different variations that you might use in your home?
So I think of cashew cream for people that enjoy creamy, saucy things. Like if you make nachos and you want a cheese sauce, you can use cashew cream instead. If you're making a nice creamy pasta like an Alfredo, you can use cashew cream instead. And it's very flexible. So I like it for this dish because it adds that extra creaminess to it. And it's really easy. I usually just soak some cashews in hot water for about 5 minutes and then throw them in the blender. The one that we're using today, we used water to blend it with, but you can use a type of plant milk if you want it a little bit more creamier. I like to use oat milk at home. And then you season it up, all about the seasoning. So since we're doing a Tex-Mex thing today, we got some chili powder in there. You can certainly add and layer your seasonings, like add some of the things that you added to your potatoes, for instance. And some citrus, because citrus goes a long way. So you have a little lime juice in there. And it turns out to be very, very nice and creamy. But the key, I can't forget about this because this is the secret ingredient, the nutritional yeast. I never heard of nutritional yeast until I went plant-based, but I will tell you it adds this very nutty, deep, complex flavor that really reminds you of cheese and sauce. So you got to have the nutritional yeast. So for this one, I believe we'll have a recipe posted on how to use it. But remember, it's super versatile. If you want it looser for a pasta sauce, add in some plant milk. If you want to keep it thick and hearty with some substance, just use a little touch of water when you're blending it. But it's going to be perfect, and it's really going to add to the layers that we're going to do today.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That sounds absolutely delicious. And we, of course, will definitely want to make sure we share the recipe. I'd love to hear in the chat, too, if anybody uses cashew cream today. How do you pair it? What do you like to put in that? All right, let's chop up another garnish. So we have an avocado here. We're going to slice this up. We also got some black beans ready because I know Dr. Bragg said she likes to put some black beans in the dish, so we've got that ready to go. And I think once we chop this avocado, I think we have all of our components ready that we can hopefully then check on our potatoes, see if they're done, and then get our bowl assembled because I'm getting hungry. All right, so to chop an avocado, what I'm going to do is I've got the avocado on the cutting board. I've got my chef's knife, and I know Dr. Bragg is going to use a different knife. And I'm just going to slice around this avocado like that, and then I can just kind of twist it open. Now, Dr. Bragg, you chose a different knife when we were setting up. Why did you pick the knife that you selected?
Because I'm not a chef. So typical butter knife that's in your drawer, right? So avocados are super soft, so I just score all the way around the avocado until it's in half, and then you end up with this nice half thing. And then I just make little score marks into it, and then when I'm ready for my garnish, I just scoop it out with a spoon onto my plate. So it may be the bootleg, non-trained chef type of way to do it, but it's easy. And I don't think I have this fancy knife at home, so, and I save my fingers.
Well, that's perfect. That's what we say. There's multiple ways to do things, and it still turns out great. So to Dr. Bragg's point, I've got this avocado half here now, and just within kind of the peel, the shell, I'm just going to make some slices here, one direction, and then turn it perpendicular and go the other direction, just like that. And then once we have our bowl all assembled, it'll be very easy for me just to scoop this out and put it right on top there. So that's how easy the avocado is. But with that, Dr. Bragg, let's go ahead and check on our potatoes, see if they're done, and if so, we can hopefully pull this bowl together and get assembling it. All right, we got our potatoes. Look at these. They look so nice and toasty. How are yours looking, Dr. Bragg?
They're looking awesome. Actually nice and crispy, just how I like them.
All right, well, they're going to be hot, so be careful when you set them down, but let's see if we can kind of get our bowl assembled with all of our various components. I'm getting a little bit hungry here looking at all this, so I'm excited to put this together and assemble it. All right, so let's grab our bowls. We've got our kind of shallow bowls there to assemble. And Dr. Bragg, I think you could just maybe walk me through this, what you think we should do with how we want to layer this.
Absolutely. So the thing is, potatoes are always at the bottom. I don't know, it's psychological. They belong there. So you get your crispy potatoes and put them there. Smush her as little as you like. And then next, I like to add the beans. I have pintos. Elizabeth has black beans. Like I said earlier, sometimes a mixture of both. You can keep your beans cold, fresh out of the can, just rinse them with a lot of water, get some of that sodium off of them. Or you can heat them up in the microwave. They're already cooked if you get the canned version. Or if you're savvy and want to make your own beans and have them in the refrigerator, that works as well. So I just layer on some beans there. Remember, beans are a protein. And then I go for the creaminess. So I'm gonna go for this cashew cream.
Yes, I need to grab a spoon. Yeah, so this is that cashew cream that we talked about that we made ahead of time. So You could just soak the cashews in some hot water, then throw them in a blender to puree them. And then really from there, you just kind of add the flavor profile you're looking for. So sometimes I keep it really simple and I just throw in a little bit of lime and that's it. And that's kind of like a cashew lime crema. Today we kind of, since Dr. Bragg's here and spice is everything to her, we threw some chili powder in here to kind of add a little extra heat to it, and also a little bit of cayenne. So really you can kind of make it for whatever you want for any particular dish.
All right, so next we're gonna add our color in. So grab some of your fresh made salsa and just get that throughout there. Remember, I like the chunks, so I like to see what I'm eating.
I like to get that juice too that kind of drips to the bottom.
Oh yeah, that lime juice.
Oh, it just adds so much great flavor. Oh my goodness.
All right, so we're almost there.
And we're gonna share with everyone a Tex-Mex kind of hash brown recipe that is very similar to what we're making today. So hopefully it kind of gives people the components that they can make a very similar dish. All right, are we doing the avocado?
We are doing avocado, and I'm actually cheating because I'm gonna go for a little extra heat and slice me a couple of jalapenos for at the end.
Yum.
So scoop out your avocado. Get a couple of chunks of that in there.
Yeah. And this is the chef in me. I see some like cilantro leaves. I'm gonna put that on top for a little garnish. It's always looking for that little bit of garnish. And you're right, even some of that jalapeno. You don't have to do this normally when you're at home, but sometimes it's fun, or sometimes when I'm doing some food photography, I do like to, find some of those things around the kitchen that can make a nice little garnish for a particular dish.
And then I had a little extra lime over here, so I'm just gonna squirt a little bit of lime to finish it.
So Dr. Bragg, when you think about your week, how do you kind of think ahead of time? Like, do you meal plan at all when you're thinking about groceries? Do you kind of have a particular day that you tend to go to for, this is my grocery shopping day, or meal planning, or how do you kind of think about the week?
So I sometimes utilize my resources. So there's grocery delivery that you can do periodically. So that's a great option for us busy professionals. But since I've started eating plant-based, I like to fill my vegetables and select them myself because I have an idea of, if I'm going to make chili on this day, I want my vegetables to be able to last that long. So I may not get the as ripe things. So I'm all about bulk cooking. So just like the salsa that we made, that can sit in the refrigerator. I may throw it on top of pasta at night, maybe take it for lunch. If I'm feeling a little spicy and do some tacos, I can use it for that. So it's all about having food available. So I make a lot of big pot meals. It's just my husband and I at home, so we can make that stretch. And I like variety. So over the weekend, I may make 2 big dishes. And eat on that. And if I have food that's ready, it keeps me from making bad choices.
That's great. Yeah, and really that having that there is very helpful to kind of quickly grab and pull things when you're busy or maybe you're in meetings. So it's great to hear that you're doing that. And sometimes those dishes get better over time as they sit and those flavors really come together. It can be really delicious. Dr. Bragg, I think we're almost done. We've got our bowls here ready to eat. I did have one last question for you. And it was really around, for people that, with the Plant Powered Challenge, it's really around encouraging people to eat more whole plant-based foods, more than what they eat currently, really meeting people wherever they may be today. So do you have any recommendations for somebody who maybe is just starting out, so it doesn't feel so overwhelming to them? Like, where do they begin? What are those kind of first initial steps they might want to consider?
First steps is just have grace with yourself. Don't try to do too much. And even if you have 1 meal with extra vegetables a day, that's more than what you were doing before. So just build on that momentum. And I promise you, if you commit to eating plant-based, even if it's for a couple of days, you're going to feel different. You're going to feel like you have more energy, less sluggish, a little bit more clarity of mind. So just keep going with it. Don't feel like you gotta completely clean out your cupboards or your refrigerator. Just do a little bit.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for all that great advice. And thank you so much for cooking with us today. This has been an inspiration. I'm excited to eat this. I hope others feel inspired to follow on the journey of really incorporating more whole plant-based foods in their diets. And they see that it's beautiful, it's delicious, and also great for you. So thank you. And Dr. Bragg, anytime you want to come back in our teaching kitchen and cook with us, you are always welcome to join us. It's been a pleasure having you today. Thank you so much for cooking breakfast with us.